Welcome to Mission Imperfect, the podcast about finding your own path, your own way, and embracing the imperfection of the journey.
We're your hosts, life coaches, former HR professionals, and mums, Kirsty and Catherine.
We love to discuss the topics that come up time and time again for our coaching clients and which affect us all, from things like acceptance and boundaries to values and well-being and everything in between.
Each episode ends with a question for you and us to reflect on. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to grab a cuppa and a biscuit and join us in getting lost in finding ourselves. Hello, and welcome to this week's Mission Imperfect, which is all about slowing down. I feel I should be saying that very slowly. Catherine, this was your topic, so tell us slowly about
Yes,
slowing down.
this is ironic because for an impatient person, slowness is something that I find a little bit irritating. And yet, I think we just have to get this out of the way. We have to tell a couple of sloth jokes first because we have both separately identified with sloths, the very
Yeah.
creatures associated with slowness. Although I have to say, I don't know if you're familiar with the film Zootropolis, the children's film. There is a sloth character in it, and there's a moment when he works in like a post office and he's so unbearably slow. It's just like, would you just do the job? It's so frustrating. And then he drives a really fast car. He's called Flash, I think. Anyway, so it's kind of exasperating. And yet I also resonate with them because I've joked before, the famous race between the hare and the tortoise. I've sort of said, well, there's also a sloth that's right at the very back, gets distracted, falls in a bush, and that's me. Just like, I don't do it on purpose. I am impatient, but there's something sometimes I just find myself being way off the pace, which is just the story of my life, I think. So I just thought, we have to quickly mention the sloth jokes. And Kirsty, you'll have to tell us your sloth resonance.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of suspect that I might be the missing link between humans and sloths. I mean, I am extraordinarily capable of doing basically fuck all for long periods of time. I can be very, very still a lot. It's it's a talent, I like to think. You know,
Yeah, they're good at doing that. They're good at being
yeah,
very still.
yeah, just I will take to the sofa and that's me, I'm done.
Mm.
If I'm not brought a cup of tea regularly enough, then I might have to get up. But
I think, what
otherwise,
about biscuits? Have biscuits made it to the sofa with you with your cup of tea?
yeah, if they're there, then it could be hours before I move. If they're not there, then that does reduce the time quite a lot, to
Yeah.
be honest. Yeah, I've got some standards.
Yes, absolutely.
Not
Okay.
many to be fair. Anyway,
Let's talk about what we actually mean to talk about this week, which is
radical.
consciously slowing down. Basically the opposite of maintaining frantic, constant busyness. Because being busy, it used to be such a badge of honor, didn't it? That you were like
Hmm.
busy, 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 meeting people, doing things, rushing here and there. And then it became a bit more of a dirty word, didn't it? Like people realized it wasn't necessarily something to be so proud of. And we hear more messages, I think, these days about being more mindful, about being a bit more present. So I think there is almost
Yeah.
like the anti busyness movement. I'm not saying it's completely flipped the other way, but I think at least we're hearing more of a counter argument to the busy, busy, busy is the only way to be, to show that you're being productive and useful and worthwhile because you're just so damn
Mm.
busy all the time.
Yeah, I'm busily nodding here, which I realise doesn't work well on a podcast. Um, yeah, I think you're right. The counter argument is definitely being put out there, but I think there is still a little bit of this sort of workplace presenteeism going on. The idea that um, the best in inverted commas employees are the ones who are there for the longest hours, and so taking action to be around or to appear to be around it. It's still things like leaving your jacket on the back of your chair even if you've gone home, so it looks like you might still be there. Um,
Sneaky. Is that from experience, Kirsty?
Yeah, but actually spending long hours in the office, even if you don't need to be there all that time, because you feel that, that the busier you are, the more important you are, or the more invaluable you are, the more secure you are in your
Mm.
job, perhaps. I think there probably is a bit of that going on. And, at the time of recording, there's been stuff in the news around certain employers and that who have been withdrawing the rights to hybrid working.
Mm.
And that seems to me to have a lot to do with the idea that we have to monitor people's productivity and they're not doing enough if you're not watching them all the time. So there's still a little bit of that, but I do agree.
Yeah.
We've start particularly perhaps in our personal lives, there is a much greater awareness of the need to slow down and be present and mindful. Of course, mindfulness is quite a big thing now, and recognizing the benefits of that is brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's such a shame what you're just saying about that withdrawal of, I mean, there's so much that goes into that, isn't it? It's like trust in people, isn't it?
Yes,
Effectively to do what
yes.
they need to do in the time available to them. And it reinforces that message of that we tend to equate busyness and being present and being seen to be busy with lots to do, lots to achieve, and therefore lots of output, but that doesn't
Mhm.
necessarily always flow. We're going to come on to some brilliant words about this in a moment, but
Yes.
if we think busyness means there's lots of output, tick 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 off the to-do list, and I'll put my hands up to say I do quite like ticking things off a to-do list, but it doesn't really
Yes, who
count if I
doesn't?
put silly, the non-useful things on there just to tick them. I've just done a bit
Oh,
of a fool's
does that not
errand.
count?
No, well,
Oh,
I might still do a little bit of that anyway, but you know what I mean? It's like we're creating sort of like we're trying to show that the busyness has equated to something, whereas is that really the reality? Which brings us on to this brilliant flip side of this busyness coin, as I called it. I've come across some great words, Kirsty. I think you'll like these.
yes.
One of them is spuddle, which I've learnt is to work ineffectively, to be extremely busy whilst achieving absolutely nothing.
Oh, I love that. I'm a
So
spuddler.
that makes you, yes, so you could be a spuddler, be guilty of spuddling, maybe. However, that isn't the favourite. There's the next one, which you wouldn't think is a real word. I've never heard anyone say this ever, which is boondoggle. And you did hear me correctly, boondoggle, which is work of little or no value done merely to keep or look busy. And I think if we can all be really honest, we might have at times been guilty of boondoggling. I'm going to assume that it can translate to boondoggling. Who knows?
It
But
has to, because that's such a
yeah,
brilliant word.
absolutely.
Boondoggling.
Yeah,
Yeah, what I'm thinking of is, I mean, we are both coaches of our own businesses and we have to do the whole marketing thing. And that social media scrolling when you are supposed to be posting on social media or commenting to build up, engagement and
yeah,
connection, whatever. But actually you are just doom scrolling. That's kind of boondoggling, isn't it?
yes, yes. We're looking busy and perhaps spuddling at
Not
the same
achieving
time because we're
anything.
not.
Yeah. No, I'm doing my marketing. No, no, I'm just scrolling. That's boondoggling.
Yes. So you start to tell yourself that you're doing something when really you're not. So that's something to be mindful of. But on the slightly more serious note, because obviously we're a very serious podcast and
Of
we don't
course,
just
yes.
introduce
Very serious.
fun words for the sake of it and
Oh.
make up our own words sometimes, don't we? Um, but those were genuine words I did find. So hope you enjoy those at the very least. But on the slightly more serious note, the busyness that we've been talking about can obviously lead to stress from not taking a moment, not having a pause, not looking after ourselves, wondering where the day has gone, and repeat. And we've spoken a little bit about this before when we did an episode about pause, about the value of a pause. But here we're talking, I mean, it's not unrelated, but we're talking about slowing down. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of slowing down.
Yeah.
Um, Even though not maybe not quite entering sloth mode, but
Maybe not that slow.
yes, yeah, there's got maybe a happier medium between busy up here and sloth mode, perhaps all the way over here. Perhaps there's somewhere in the middle where the slowing down is helpful. And I think it's because it allows us to have focus, attention, and awareness instead of potentially autopilot, the doing without thinking and
Yeah.
potentially wasted time. Because actually, we can waste time being just busy because you're rushing into things. Um, and slowing down gives you that moment. It's not the same as stopping, it's slowing down. It's a chance to have clarity and informed decisions and check
Mm.
in before proceeding, which again we spoke a little bit about in our decision making episode. So all of these things will have sort of common threads running through them, but I hope that's making sense
Yeah.
about
It gives you
the
time to
value
think.
in slowing down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And always rushing can keep us in this sort of flight or fight mode. And when we're in that mode, rational thinking can be abandoned in favour of haste. So that's the one advantage of being the sloth that falls in the bush, because there's not so much haste happening there. But the irony is that rushing can ironically lead you to having to do something again
Oh,
or
yes.
undoing the thing that you've done because you've done it in haste, you've done it perhaps wrong. And that can actually take us longer than if we'd slowed down in the first place. I think they call that a cruel irony, don't they? That
Yeah.
you tried to do something quickly and it ended up taking longer.
What's the old thing? The more haste, less speed is something that I can. My mother's saying to me when I was rushing at stuff.
Yeah,
It doesn't make much sense sort of linguistically, I don't think, but the idea that there are different ways of getting something done.
yeah. Well, it's so funny you just said that actually, because that's a very well-known phrase, isn't it? More haste, less speed. And we're effectively saying that slowing down can potentially be more of a speed up than you might
Yeah.
think. Again, not quite in the sloth mode, but perhaps somewhere in the middle. But the thing is also our bodies don't like to be in this constant
No.
flight or fight mode because we need time in our healing, resting, and digesting modes too, which I've learnt is the parasympathetic state. Um, so it is important to actually allow because our bodies are responding to all the
Yeah.
busyness.
Is it cortisol that's one of the problem sort of products of stress and the way our bodies have to deal with it?
Yes,
Or
I
have I
think they
just
call
made
it the
that up?
stress hormone. I think they
Yeah.
call that cortisol, and I think if I remember correctly, like small bursts are quite sort of necessary. Like if you're in a
Hmm.
particularly
Yeah.
immediately
Saber-toothed
stressful.
tiger, that sort of thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. It's got to pop up again, but it's not something you want to be in that in for a sustained basis because you imagine
Absolutely.
that's probably
Yeah.
not good for you. Yeah. So, excuse me. I think slowing down gives us that chance for deeper connection as well. Obviously, as coaches, we're always in favour of checking in with things like
Yep.
do they really matter? Are they of importance? Are we doing them out of obligation or autopilot? All these other things. So it's a chance to connect to yourself on what matters, but also to others rather than everything being done, 100 miles an hour, hasty,
Yeah, it
not
kind of
having.
puts the blinkers on, doesn't it?
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
just sort of plowing straight ahead without any thought for what it means to you or to others, how you're feeling, how others are reacting to it. There's so much you miss.
Yeah, exactly. And as we said, it doesn't necessarily mean stopping. Not that there's anything wrong with that if a pause is required. Even a pause is only a temporary stop, isn't it? But and it also doesn't necessarily mean missing out because sometimes when we're being more selective and I just made up a word. What on
You
earth was
did,
that?
well, you did say we make up words.
I know
Yeah,
that was a terrible one.
intentionable.
Yeah,
I
that
quite
was
quite
no.
like it. Would you just need a definition for it? Intentionable could be the new thing.
I obviously meant to say intentional, which is a real word. We have our, hold on, I'm not going to say it again. Yeses and nos that really matter to us. It doesn't mean that we're missing out. It just means we've chosen what's more appropriate and relevant for us. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it
such
doesn't
a good
necessarily
point.
mean FOMO. Yeah.
Yeah, so often we're just blindly blinkers again, blindly saying yes to everything without stopping to think and to make that connection to what matters, like your previous point. And it just overwhelms us, and we don't have an opportunity to really focus on and enjoy the stuff that we want to.
Yeah. And I think you'll be a fan of this one, Kirsty. There's actually some evidence to back this up that breaks are good for us. Even
Excellent.
when we're learning something, so say you've got an hour and you're trying to learn guitar, for example, there's research that shows if you just tried to cram in non-stop for that 1 hour learning guitar, like you went over the notes, the scales, everything over and over again, that your overall learning and recall would not be as good as if you did perhaps a chunk and then gave yourself a 5 minute break and then came back to it. There is something about
Oh,
that little moment of pause, of a break that you gave yourself that means your sort of recall and correcting of what you were learning is better. And I thought, well, that's certainly something I
that's
can get
interesting,
on board
isn't it?
with.
Yeah, because
Yeah, so
I'm kind of at the age where I worry that if I have too much of a break, I will actually forget what it was I was learning.
yeah, I'm not sure the break's supposed to be longer than the actual learning. I'm just going to
It doesn't
caveat
have
it.
to be. It doesn't have to be for that to happen these days, frankly. Um, well, no, that's what I'm afraid. Yeah, that's what I'm afraid of. If I don't keep doing this thing, I will probably forget it. But maybe that's just not true.
I wonder if we should do some kind of experiment, like try and do, a language or something. No, that's really ambitious. But even just like a lesson and see what we could recall if we treated it like a really intensive spell or did it with breaks. I mean, obviously that wouldn't be a particularly scientific evidence base with two participants with perhaps varying degrees of memory at the best of times. But I just thought that was really
Oh,
interesting that it's something about, I think, maybe trying to
hmm,
hastily cram it in. There's actually evidence that the progress is greater with because effectively what you're doing is slowing down for a moment. You're allowing yourself to perhaps process what it is you've learned,
process and
know
embed and
recognize
yeah.
perhaps where you it was that you were going wrong, and that's what you pay attention to when you go back, rather than just
Mm.
keeping going. Interesting. Anyway, just thought I'd share that because
Yeah, kind of. I guess you're making the connections in your own mind and sort of reframing it in way because you're taught something in a certain way. And I think probably we then will need to reframe it into something that works better for us in how we are going to remember it and approach it. And maybe that's what that break does, allows that to start happening. Hmm,
mm,
an
it
interesting
just
thing to
sounds good.
try.
Because 5 minutes is just about the right time for tea and a biscuit, which is always going to be a good thing. So
Hmm, you make an excellent point.
I do, don't I? And
You do.
as we've said,
Yes.
being busy and always on the go doesn't always equate to effective and meaningful output. So I think we've made that point. So I
Boondoggle
think,
again. Boondoggle.
yes, yeah, exactly. I think it's a case of thinking of maybe slow. I'm going to put slower, perhaps more meaningfully, as a strategy rather than it being passive, um, or wasteful with your
Yeah,
time. Because I think there is a general rule in life that there is just always more to do, no matter who you are, or how busy you are. Even for the busiest people, you think you've cleared time, they fill it for something else. It's just a law of how things work.
absolutely. Yeah.
So isn't it important to maybe slow down and consider how and with whom you'll use your precious time and energy, because those are resources that we have that are finite within a day, aren't they? We can't, as much
Yes.
as we wish we could magic up more time, we can't. And by the end of the day, and we all resonate with the idea of being a bit brain dead, don't we, at the end of the day, because we've
A bit.
used.
Yeah, very. Yeah, war
We're
brain.
joking because we're recording on a bit later in the evening, aren't we, Kirsten, than we normally do. So
Yeah.
hence maybe the interesting word that I made up earlier to go with. I feel like I've undone all my good work with my boondoggle by introducing intention.
Intentionable.
Was I said? Oh, intention. Oh God, what was?
I
Anyway,
remember it because I like it. Yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem with the always being hurried and rushing at things and that sense of time pressure is this the slowing down we feel means we're going to do less. We're not going to be able to get everything done. And as you quite rightly say, we probably never will get everything done. There's always going to be more. But sometimes it's about the state of mind that we're bringing to doing stuff. Because when you switch off that hurry, 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 what's next sort of soundtrack, and you actually focus on what you're doing right now, it might actually make you more efficient and productive when your attention is all in that, what you are
Yeah,
doing now, as opposed to the what's next, what's next. I've got to get all this done. I've got so much to do. It will change how you're able to approach that and tackle it. You're not trying to divide your consciousness between what you're actually doing and what's coming next.
yeah, definitely. No, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Hmm. Lots to think about slowly.
So yes,
Thinking slowly is something I'm very good at.
yes. Oh, that's a book actually, isn't it? Thinking slowly and
Oh, thinking
who
thinking
is.
slow, thinking fast or something, is it?
But
Yeah.
yes, thinking fast and slow, something like that. Oh, that's going to annoy me now. We'll have to put it in the show
Look
notes
for it.
when
Yeah.
we remember who it is and
Yes.
exact title, because at this stage of the evening, our brains have slowed down considerably. We can't remember. But it's interesting because there are a lot. When I was looking for some quotes to share on this, there are a lot of people talking in favour of slowing down and making an awful lot of sense. So
Excellent.
let's share a couple of those. So we have this one, Mahatma Gandhi. There is more to life than increasing its speed.
Oh.
Which I like that one.
Yeah. I I quite like this one. I mean, it makes me think of a pain relief advert. I don't know if that was the intention. If it was, it's brilliant. For fast acting relief, try slowing down from Lily Tomlin.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it? And on a similar vein, slowing down is sometimes the best way to speed up. That's Mike Vance. And just this last one, which I think was it's by somebody called Kaylee Dre. She said, "Slow living is not about living your life in slow motion. It's about doing everything at the right speed and pacing instead of rushing. By that same logic, slow living is not about losing time by going slowly. It's about gaining time by doing the things that are most important to you." I think she summed up so well everything we tried to randomly say, and she's put it perfectly in about two sentences.
Yeah, maybe this podcast should just become a series of shows where we just read a quote and go, there you go. Think about that.
Might be. Or
We're off
people
for
can
tea and
maybe,
biscuits. Yeah.
yeah. We could just say to people, tune into the last 2 minutes. However, question is all ours, which is this week, what might you achieve, and in brackets, possibly more quickly, by slowing down? So, Kirsty, tell us.
Well, this is really interesting. I think I've used the word interesting about a gazillion times in this episode because it is. Um, but I recently started a new day job, and after we sort of exchanged notes about our the episodes we were recording, I was thinking about it today, and I realised that I have been just rushing, rushing, rushing. Right now, I'm trying to learn a lot of new things. It's two roles merged into one. There's a huge backlog on one side of it, and so it's constantly just trying to get through it, and that sense that I've got to get to the bottom of it, both in terms of what I'm learning and getting the stuff out my inbox off my desk, which I'm never going to do because people will keep giving me more. And what I realized today is that if I slow down, I'm going to be able to build that understanding, that more in-depth understanding of the processes that I have to follow and the way that I am going to work with them. And as with so many processes, things that go off to other people and come back and go off and come back, for approvals and all this sort of thing. And I realize how much time I'm wasting because I'm getting confused at each different stage of the process about where the stuff is, where I can find all the bits I need that were put to one side at the last stage. And it's really slowing me down because I'm rushing.
Hmm.
So, so I could achieve a much deeper understanding of an efficiency in what I'm trying to learn and deliver if I slow down and actually take it all in and find ways of making it work better for me than by just rushing to do the doing.
Yeah,
So thank you for making me think of that. I found that
Oh, that's
really
right.
useful.
You're welcome. So I've got a very different example actually this time. And I think, well, I've said I think I'm well and truly in the slow camp with that dangerous combination of being impatient. So it's not a good combination really for me. However, um, so being conscientious has been a character trait of mine from my earliest school reports. I remember seeing
Me
them.
too.
So
Yes.
I don't often rush in to anything. That's the truth of it. But it's interesting. I do think I am in better physical health at the moment than I have been probably for a long time. And I think that has to be, at least in part, to my willingness to slow down a bit. Because in the slowing down, I have allowed myself some time to look after myself as well. Um, but this will make you laugh, Kirsty, because I know that you are a runner. And I even walk rather than run as my exercise. But it's interesting that I think I actually had an annual set of tests done at the doctor's just last week, and I logged on online to see my results. They said that you won't hear from us unless there's a problem. I thought I just want to be curious and see what they said. And she said you'll see the word normal hopefully come up if you don't hear from us, which I did because I had to have a little look and see what. Obviously, there was various figures and numbers and stuff, but I just kind of trusty old Google just to see what some of them meant. Like was I quite well within the range of
Mm.
a good result or close or whatever it might be. So I just spent a little bit of time looking through it, and it was actually quite encouraging to see that they were quite good figures
Brilliant.
for someone of my ancient age, as I am these days. I know it's quite
Less
funny
of
that when
that,
they invite you, they're
please.
like, "This is your annual." Basically, you've come a year older checkup. I'm like, oh, thanks very much. Check I'm still, alive. Um, but yes, back to the point. I think the slowing down has enabled me to have better physical health.
That's amazing.
So there we
Yeah.
go. That is all our nuggets about slowing down. I'll just repeat the question for you. So, what might you achieve possibly more quickly by slowing down? And I hope that you find something interesting as your answer.
And if you're of a certain age, you'll appreciate the whole possibility of having a Cadbury's caramel. They had a series of adverts with the hare and the tortoise,
Oh,
and it,
yes, it did.
yeah,
You're
and
right.
I can't remember the tagline now, but it was all about slowing down and enjoying the Cadbury's caramel. So if you need an excuse for chocolate, there you go.
Wow. I never need an excuse for chocolate, but you've definitely planted the seed of I want some chocolate now. On that
On which
note,
note,
yes, we will see you all next week for another episode.
thank you for listening to this week's episode of Mission Imperfect.
Please visit the show notes for details on how to contact us and for any resources we may have on the topic discussed.
Until next time, keep being imperfectly you. No one does it better.